Welcome back to JoJo Bizarre Adventure Anime Review, episode number 55. I had to start this one over because I clicked on the wrong microphone for this thing. That was simply the reason for it. With this episode discussing the last 6 episodes of JoJo Bizarre Adventure Stone Ocean, episodes 33 and 38. And I'm also discuss in this particular one the last two OVAs for the OVA series, Thus Spoke Rohan. Rohan. Yep. Now, in the case, by the way, he's actually mentioned these episodes, believe it or not. Oh, yes, he is. I will get to that. So, put these last 6 episodes are basically, you can kind of think of it as basically the last arc of the series. So, basically, they're on with the Cape Canaveral. Basically, it's Jolene, Anastasia, Hermes, and Pero. They're on the way to Cape Canaveral. And by the way the anime describes it is completely 100% accurate to the real life Cape Canaveral. Except there's a few more museums they do show there. But it's mostly pretty accurate, which I gotta give high praise for the creator of the series. And I'm sorry that I mispronounced the guy's name. I gave the wrong name here. The guy's name is not Hiromash, but it is Hirokuro Akari. Excuse me. Oh, by the way, the writer is currently 62. Yep, 62 years old, and has been active in manga since 1980. Yeah, 42 years. Since he was 20 years old. Yeah. So, in the case of what happens here, they're basically on the way there, and then of course they have Hermes hold Imperial's like his desktop computer. Yes, he has a ghost desktop computer that can work anywhere without freaking Wi-Fi. By the way, this is set in 2012. These episodes, I will get to what happens at the end. It is weird what happens. It's called Bizarre Adventure for a reason, and it gets bizarre. Like, wow, I've not seen something like this as bizarre of an ending as this since you probably think, was Golden Wind the previous one? Was the ending of that one as bizarre as this? Oh no, this is more bizarre than that one. This is probably the most bizarre ending out of the entire parts. Out of all 6 parts after for the anime, this is the most bizarre one I've ever seen. Like I said, so on the way there, after they've explained what Cape Canaveral, all of a sudden the car starts moving. Now, the priest has arrived at Cape Canaveral, and he apparently just think he could wait 15 minutes, but another pastor invites him to come along. Oh, he's with me. This I think he's never been before. So basically, he inadvertently offs. Also, in the same episode, he proceeds to use his new stand ability to kill him. Yes, which he refers to as Sea Moon. It's a prototype for his final form of his stand, which I'll get to that. So, the sand's ability is to have the gravity in the area around Cape Canaveral to basically go a different direction. Everything goes up. Everything is falling backwards. And so you got a car, and Hermes gets lost. So she does come back a little bit later, which God praise her for that. So the three of them basically go to Cape Canaveral, had to basically crawl away there, because of course if they don't, basically they'll be knocked over because of the sheer gravity. And apparently it's caused humongous service Cape Canaveral. By the way, in the episode, is there any like launches from the space shuttle? Nope, not really. Oh, here's a fun fact for you. When was the space shuttle actually retired? This is not being seen here. I believe it was like 2010, I think it was. Yeah, I remember correctly. I think it was retired, and I believe it was in 2010, I think it was. Uh, Actually, it was 2011. Yeah, it was basically like prior to this episode. Yeah, it is something though they actually featured in appearance by a space shuttle. Despite the fact at the time when this episode came out, the Space shuttle program long been retired. Yeah, long been retired for over a decade. Is it quite weird though that the anime is set, that this particular one is set like where it ends, like the very time period it ends, is the same year the anime began a decade ago? Yeah, just by sheer coincidence. So they arrive there and begin their final battle with, of course, Pucci. Now, he has no more stand users. All the stand users he sent their way have all been defeated. And I do mean every single one has been beaten. You probably think, okay, who was the last one sent after him? It was down to the Versus. He was the last stand user that was sent after them. And Weatherport was just killed off just the previous episode. Actually, he was killed off in episode 32. He got killed off. Yeah, Weatherport. Though what happens is that does play into the finale for this thing. So, they fight there for a while. Like, all hope is lost. And then, of course, they go inside the visitor center. And then, of course, basically it seems as though that Jolene's in there. And, of course, you have where Pucci is about to let the final blow. And then all of a sudden we hear, "Stop time! The world! JoJo Kujo is back for the first time since the start of this damn series. First time in action." I'm sure Matthew Mercer was probably pretty happy to hear his voice, get a chance to play the character again. Especially since the last time he appeared, the guy was a freaking coma. Yeah, he had no memory. Now he got his memories back. Despite the fact that disc was actually degraded by the time it got to him. Yes, I thought that was kind of weird. So, basically, like, he gets there, and of course, basically, he helps out the group. And of course, they'll like a spear at him. Yeah, how they get, by the way, Irma's still be alive. Yeah, this is where she probably off screen met JoJo Kujo. That would be an interesting meeting. Where he's like, "Oh, are you Irma's? Yes, I'm your daughter's best friend. Cool. Let's go kill the man who basically framed my daughter." I'm sure that probably was the conversation, but that would be an interesting meeting. It seems like the way they introduced JoJo here is similar to how they did in the manga. He just introduced completely out of nowhere. Like, my gosh, it is like completely out of nowhere, completely out of the blue. Though this was expected. Though, I think the one scene that could have been easily fit here for animated content is basically Irma's first meeting with JoJo Kujo, the awesome badass he is. Yep. And he fights Pucci with his stand. Though, apparently, it's while he's in the world, he actually can, get this, he actually can move inside of it. Now, the only person who can, now, aside from Jotaro, the only people who can move inside this world, one, of course, has been long dead for 14 years at this point in time. Actually, 15 years, and that's Dio Brando. Apparently, Final Pucci can move in here, too. Yes, Final Pucci can move in here. So he fights him, and eventually he's able to be knocked away thanks to be trapped in a door. Yes, a door. He uses the gravity to lift himself inside a freaking space shuttle, and everybody gets launched away from him. And eventually launches the space shuttle up, and eventually he evolves. He evolves and stand into its final form, made in heaven, a stand on a freaking horse, which apparently can alter time. Yeah, time is sped up like crazy. It gets worse as time goes on. So, they fight him. And, of course, they can't need to get away. So, they try to get away, thanks to, of course, firing a bullet. Yes, a freaking bullet. How do they get the gun? A dead security guard. Yes. So, eventually, of course, they fly the bullet away, thanks to duplicate it with Irma's ability, his first stand kiss. So, they fly into the ocean, and they get out there by proceeding close to the way. And then, of course, Final Pucci slowly, he pretty much kills JoJo Kujo. He kills up Irmis, and he kills Anastasia. Anastasia, of course, prior to this, on a rooftop. There was a rooftop scene, really cool scene. We have the 5 characters, and then Anastasia, completely out of nowhere. By the way, he does this in the manga too, and JoJo's completely like, "What? Really?" Yes, Anastasia wants to ask JoJo Kujo's permission to marry his daughter. And then later on, apparently Jolie hears this, and she accepts his proposal. Yes, she accepts being engaged to Anastasia. A guy which she has not known very long, maybe a year at most while she was in prison. Then, of course, basically they. Then, of course, Anastasia's the first one to die. Actually, first JoJo guy did Anastasia, and Hermes dies too. And Jolene supposedly gets killed, but then she gets killed. Then she survives and gets killed a little later by Pucci. And then, thanks to time acceleration, which also causes the buildings to collapse, goes to a post-apocalyptic future. By the way, the people are not affected by this. The land is affected by it. Only the land and the buildings. The plants and the animals are completely unaffected by it. So time accelerates so fast, it gets so cold, and the clothing is disappearing, and Para goes naked, and then when time resets, apparently they went back in time 1 year prior to the events of this episode. 1 year. And there's a slight alteration here. We do see JoJo and Jolene from the pilot episode of this season. Except Jolene does not have the same thing on her chest this time. They changed to put a B there. And it looks like, oh, they're going to possibly kill him, but no. Like, it looks like it's the same exact scene, except basically Jolene's outfits have slightly been altered for reasons completely unknown. And then, of course, Pucci knocks the table on both of them. They get away. Pucci is basically doing his best trying to kill off Impero because apparently he knew nothing about Impero the entire time. And by the way, the first room he goes to, apparently, like, at this guard, and he's surrounded by a handful of women who looks like very beautiful women, and they're all naked. And the guard's naked too. And apparently, like, Leia's like, oh, don't get the right idea. He has no idea what the heck going on. Why the heck they're all naked? I mean, you can imply that apparently off screen he must have orgasm with them, possibly, or at least have five-way. That you can imply that here, but it's never stated exactly what the heck happened here. I mean, heck, Apero's naked too, though he did put his clothes back on. So apparently he's able to go back to his own room. He has his final battle with Pucci. Pucci, by the way, when he arrives in his road, his eye is still bleeding from prior to that. I think it was, JoJo dead. Either JoJo or Jolene dead to him. They come in eventually. Pucci is eventually defeated by his own brother's stand because weather forecast transforms him into a disc. Yes, a freaking disc. And then, of course, Impero uses the ability and basically uses to kill. How did this be? Sucking, basically putting more oxygen in the room. Now, here's the thing. I don't know if this is accurate or not. I have no idea. Because apparently he says, oh, we only bring 40% oxygen. If we get to 100% oxygen, we die. Now, here's the thing. I have no idea if that's true or not. He just says it because they read the books. So, okay. So that's how he beats Pucci. And then time resets again. And then he wakes up and he's at a gas station called it's called Green Dolphin Road. And basically it's trying to look like it's supposed to Orlando, but the O is missing. And a bus comes by, and then we see someone come off the bus who's yelling about the fact that the driver had no change for a 50, and it's Hermes. But it's not Hermes. It's an alternate timeline version of her. And then he turns around. Oh, we see this person in the car. It's Anastasia. But he refers to himself as Anarchist. That's his name. And the woman in the car, appearance-wise, is Jolene. But her name is Irene. Yes. And, of course, they volunteer to give her a lift. And, of course, go see her father, who's in prison. Now, presumably, this is probably a version of JoJo Kujo. They don't say, but you can apply it. Then, of course, on the way, they proceed to pick up an alternate version of Weather Report, who, by the way, wearing the same exact outfit. The only character of these four who are not wearing the same outfit in the previous time is Anastasia, because he's wearing completely different attire. Hermes, same exact attire, except her outfit doesn't have the stuff related to the prison on her back. Irene, the only thing different about her, aside from the fact that she wears a sweater, that's it. That's the only difference. She wears a sweater over her outfit, which is strange. I mean, I think her hairstyle is slightly different. Aside from her name, she's not much different from the actual Jolene Kujo. And of course, they drive off, and that's the episode. And that's pretty much the end of the series right there. End of Stone Ocean. I gotta admit, very bizarre ending. Yes, with all the time travel stuff, it is, like, to date, the most bizarre ending of the entire, out of all 6 parts, the most bizarre ending. And of course, Poochie thinks that Jolene Cujo is the last of the Joestar line. No. No, she is not. Even if you kill her off, she's not the last the Joestar line. Nope. There is still one left he skipped. And that's Josuke Hizugaya. You're thinking, really? Yes, really. Apparently, he didn't bother to know about him at all. He probably has no idea about about Jotaro's teenage uncle. Yeah, he has no idea about this character. Yeah, he knows about Jotaro, the man who killed Dio Brando back in the 80s. Which, fun fact, when the time period that set it, it's when the manga first started. Though I think when the manga was released Stars, I believe, was released back in the 90s. Yes, I think Stone Ocean was actually released in the 2000s, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Yeah. You remember correctly, this came out in the original manga for Stone Ocean, in case you're curious, came out in from 2000 to 2001. They did, however, release a manga spinoff of this book. Like, really? Yeah, really. This is a spinoff of the damn thing. Me. Now, I have not read it yet, but I have read the Stone Ocean manga. And yeah, it's pretty accurate to the manga. Hmm? Oh, here's a little fun fact you might be interested in. Did you know that the manga has been released on the Weekly Shonen Jump app? Yes, it has. If you're curious, is there a English release of Stone Ocean? Not yet per se. I believe that they had just, if I can look at this correctly, I think they had just gone to release Golden Wind. For Golden Wind, they're actually almost done collecting it. Um, Volume 6 was the most recent volume they released for Golden Wind. And also, here's something interesting though. With Stone Ocean, that's the last of the original continuity of JoJo Bizarre Adventure. Yes, this is the last one. As for why in the world he did this for, I don't know. Because with the very next one, Still Bill Run, which it's completely unknown if it's going to be, how should I put this? It's completely unknown if it's going to be adapted or not. I have heard it's going to take a break. Now, by the way, when this anime came out, it only had been like a little over I think it was just a little over, I think it was like 2 years. Yeah, it was just a little over 2 years since the last season came out, which was Go To, which I have reviewed that one. It was awesome. I loved it. Diamonds and Breakaway came out came out 2 years prior to that. Star Wars Crusaders was like 1 year prior. So you might have to think, okay, does Steelbook Run have enough chapters for adaptation for a full series? The answer is yes. Yes, it is. Though, I think people might be confused with this one because it's a reboot. Yes, it's a freaking reboot. That's the best way to describe Steelbook Run is what if Jonathan Joestar got a stand instead of basically having Harmon or Ripple as it was back then. That's pretty much basically the best way to describe basically what this thing is. And plus, it's set in the US, not set in the UK. There is version of Brand shows up in there, but from a different timeline. Also, the president of the United States at this point is not Grant. It's actually a guy called Valentine, and the guy is an attempted rapist. Yeah, he attempts to rape a woman in the Oval Office. Yeah, that's how much of an evil person he is. Yeah, it's only 95 chapters. If you can find a way to read it, go right ahead. I have read also the follow up to this one, which is JoJo Land. No, JoJo Lands is the very next one. JoJo Land actually just recently wrapped up. It wrapped up like a year ago. I'm not kidding about it. It wrapped up 1 year ago. All it is just a it's basically a sequel to this one. That's doing it like 100 years later, not like 50 years later per se. Yeah. Though at the time, Steel Ball Run was basically done. It was actually the first part released monthly instead of weekly. And if you're curious how long it took to release 95 chapters, this took 8 years. 8 years, at least about 9 years to come out. I'm like, actually, about 8 years to come out. It was that freaking long. Joe Jolin, that went on for freaking 10 years. 10 freaking years. And had over 100 chapters published. It had 110 chapters published in 10 years. Yeah. But, all right. Now, I'm going to get my final thoughts next video, but next up we're talking about the anime Dustbuck Rohan. There were two more OVAs. Now, by the way, almost forgot to mention, when time is accelerating, this manga artist really want to get to this arc on time, but his pen keeps running every time basically he tries to draw something. He gets a phone call, like, oh, we have somebody turning on time. Like, who? Kishibe Rohan. Like, what? Really? He did? Yeah, he did. Now, the two OVAs that were basically here, they apparently have not released any more OVAs. These were released in Japan about 2 years ago, I think it was. Yes, actually about 3 years ago when these were released. Same day. Yep. Now, in the case of these ones, we have episode 16, At the Confessional, episode 9, The Run. Episode 16 was actually the very first one-shot ever released. Yes, the very first one. In the case of The Run, that was actually released. That was actually the 8th one-shot ever released. You think, really? Yes, really. These one-shots are released mostly out of order. It just released very, very late. That's most what it is. If you're curious, the first OVA, Millionaire Village, that was the 3rd one-shot. The one that comes over, Master Hill, that was actually released just before that one. Like, here's the thing. At Confessional, that was released, like, before this one came out, which was in 2019. That had been released 22 years prior to release this OVA. And the following one, which is by the way the 8th one, that was only released just like a year prior to this one. Now, in the case of this one here. Excuse me. Now, in the case of At the Confessional, this one you could definitely say is set before Going to Win. Because, what's his name here? Kichi. Kichi, he's about to go off to Venice, and he wants him to teach him basically fluent Italian. Okay? By the way, his girlfriend shows up at the very end, along with Josuke's best friend. By the way, I think, if I remember correctly, I think when I read this one shot, I think Josuke was his one shot, but he doesn't say anything. I think he was here. I think he was. I'm trying to think. I think her name was Yumina. I believe the character was from part 4. I believe it was. For me. Let's see. I'm trying to basically find her name here. Najira and Unico. Yep, Unico. Yep. So basically, Rohan. This is of course after. I think from his flashback, this is after he mentioned about Josuke, where it's like, oh, it counted with that person because. So here's the thing. In his debut story, he dare insult Josuke's hair. Josuke had this thing where anybody who sold his hair, he goes into a rage. And apparently he didn't look at the manga that he drew, because anybody looking at the manga basically would be manipulated. It's something to say the least. And like, he went into a rage and he proceeded to beat the living crap out of him. My gosh, it was insane, to say the least. Yeah, it was insane. So, what's Rohan's basic response to take a well-deserved vacation? Go to frickin' Italy. Yes, he takes pictures all for inspiration for his one-shots that he does. He takes pictures of a confessional, and then you hear a very bizarre story where this guy who was a laborer, who apparently had this thing where he worked all day lifting these bags of corn. Yes, seriously. He also has weird hairstyle. Also, this vagrant came by, begging for food, and then apparently he decided to be his own boss. He decided to bully him to basically do his own work, and he of course doesn't want him to eat his food that he had basically waited so hard to eat. And then the guy dies, and apparently the thing fell on him. So, and then for some reason, like you see, like the old man vagrant, where he just crawling over to him, basically saying, "I'm going to hurt you on your most happiest day of your life." And of course, basically, a whole bunch of luck happens to him. He basically gets inheritance. He wins the lottery. He starts a company with corn, which involves various popcorn. He gets a mansion, servants. He gets a smoking hot wife who happens to be a model. He gets a daughter, and on a happy day, like he's like, "Oh, I'm so happy." By the whole time, he's basically very worried that he might be attacked by this ghostly spirit. And apparently, when he does, because she was doing sugar, eating popcorn, like, go up in there, eat it. He wants to do the same thing. Apparently, it goes high as the pole, high as, let's say, the frickin' sun. I'm not kidding about that. And then eventually the guy gets his own head chopped off by this demon. And you think he's dead, but no. Apparently he did plastic surgery himself. And he swapped face with somebody you think he killed him, but not really. Because it turns out the person talking to him, you think, wait, isn't he dead? How is he still telling the story if he's already dead? Well, it turns out the one who died was actually a stand-in. I'm not kidding about that. The guy was freaking paranoid. So you basically see him at the very. He goes back home, and then we see the others who just pop out of nowhere. Yeah, they're just there. And of course, they order drinks, and that's the episode. Now, of course, also, now I should point out in the first two, for these ones, because I actually rewatch these ones. It dealt with his financial situation because apparently in the first one, because apparently the second was actually adapted out of order. I'm not sure why, but it was. Or apparently went bankrupt buying this land for a story. So he went bankrupt. And apparently also he swapped editors. And it's strange stuff, these 4 OVAs. The first 3 started with him at a cafe. The fourth one doesn't. Doesn't even focus on him at all. This other thing is his freaking one-shot. We start with him basically look like a police station. It looks like he's got broken fingers. In a freaking cast. So, and then we flash back to where he's at the gym. Yes, the freaking gym. Where apparently, like, this guy who apparently gets spotted by this woman. He's just leaning against a fire hydrant, just waiting for somebody to do. And then this woman who happens to be like an agent just scouts him. He becomes like an actor, and becomes a model, gets up a smoking hot girlfriend. And then he proceeds to have himself a good workout, to chisel himself out, get nice abs. Yes, and apparently it gets to him with the workout habits. Now, I've heard people who do workouts, but not to the extent, basically, this guy, where he just had protein shakes, like, that's all he has, no food. I mean, he's going to get hungry. I mean, I'm sure people who do workouts do, in fact, get freaking hungry for regular food. And apparently all he wants is protein shakes. No, seriously. Oh, yeah, apparently he spends $5,000 on 2,000 grams of this damn thing. I'm like, seriously, dude, that's freaking stupid. Like, if you're going to buy this stuff, you're rich. You basically have money from your freaking acting jobs. Use that to buy your freaking protein bar. Don't buy your girlfriend's money. And then he gets freaking jacked, and he gets more jacked from the first time he meets Rohan halfway to the damn story because Rohan, it's his one shot, and yet he's not in the damn story for some reason. I'm like, really? Yeah, really. That's how weird this thing is. Let me. Okay, so basically, he proceeds to have a competition with him just working out. Apparently, there's a flashback where he just knocks over this remote and press stop. Who wins? And then eventually he has a rematch with him. Apparently, he also, because he was obsessed with working, apparently took time to put a bunch of rocks on his wall for boulder climbing on his own walls of his apartment, which is rented, by the way, and put one over the freaking thermostat. He goes, oh yeah, I'm going to take out the air conditioner because basically wasting space. And she's like, really? And he gets really weird with her, and he proceeds to, she just tells her just like, no, it's big with him. She tells him to get out. And apparently he also took time to put boulders on the outside of the freaking building. And then she's never seen again in the episode. Nope, she only seen a couple times in his apartment. Oh yeah, by the way, she made this very delicious meal, and he does not want to eat it. I mean, I'm sure she spent time making it, like, oh, no carbs. Like, okay. Here's the thing. Even if you work out, you probably want to get some pasta in you. I occasionally have pasta, as much as I used to, but I have freaking pasta. This looks delicious. I would eat basically myself, but nope. He does not want to eat. He wants protein shakes, protein shakes, protein shakes. I mean, that is stupid. You gotta have a good amount of food, and you can't just have powder all the freaking time. I don't. This guy's a freaking nuts. He also scares off a delivery guy, makes late night deliveries. No, seriously, he does. And of course, he has a rematch with Rohan, where he proceeds to take off his shirt, and apparently he's got more freaking abs than any other human being can do. Where he's got abs, not only in front, but also his freaking sides. And also sees, apparently, like, he's also got weird things with his shoulder blade, his freaking calves. Also, by the way, he also took time to break the freaking back window because apparently this gym they're in isn't a freaking skyscraper. Yeah, seriously. Excuse me. Yeah, in a freaking skyscraper of all things. Yes, a skyscraper. So first one, the 25 kph, 25 miles per hour. Then they hit the stop button, and of course they go freaking fast. And at one point he runs backwards. I'm like, what the heck? Even Rohan's like, what? Yeah, and here's the thing: Rohan do workouts. I'm sure mangaka probably do workouts to keep themselves in shape, because these guys basically just like these guys hurt themselves a lot when they do their freaking manga. I'm sure they need to work out some stress. They probably need to work out, probably to relieve all the stress. All basically, oh, I gotta finish this drawing by this freaking deadline. I'm sure they probably do it to relieve stress. I'm sure they do. So him do is perfectly fine. No issue with here, though. It's kind of weird to wear pants, look like wear like dress pants when you're on a freaking treadmill. Now, it's one thing to do that when you're lifting weights. But on a treadmill, I would probably recommend putting on freaking shorts, man. Also, he apparently sees that apparently the other guy has got like a little wingtip in his hair. Like he's turning to freaking Hermes. No, seriously. After he wins, even though he presses the emergency stop button, it's not Rohan who goes out the window, it's the guy who's original the story. He falls out the window, and presumably he might be still alive. So Rohan does not look outside because he doesn't want to be killed. So he just walks away. Just walks out the door, and that's how the OVA ends. A very weird OVA. I'd say the confessions part more interesting than this one is. Yep. And that's the last of the OVAs because they haven't released a new one in 3 years. Now you might be thinking, okay, like, is there, how should I put this? How many more one-shots will be adapted? They only adapted 4. Yeah, seriously. They only adapted 4, and, excuse me, so why did they adapt more? I don't know. Now, in case you're curious, how many more one shots left those little mini series with the 10th one? There is like overall 10 one shots, and they only adapted 4 of them. You thinking, really? Yeah, really. Only freaking 4. Like, first one, At the Confession, which was the third one, released in 1997. Second one was released a decade later. And then he went away 4 years next one shot, and then like one every year from 2013 to 2015. And next one come out 2 years later in 2017, 2018. After 2018, next one come out 3 years later. And then, of course, when the last one came out like exactly 1 month later. I mean, could these images be adapted? It's possible, but the only way currently you can see this is in the live action adaptation of it. Yeah, seriously, where in like the first episode they adapt basically the same first one they adapt for the first OVA, Meal in the Village. Michael Hill is actually for the 6th episode of the series, and the last one was actually released just today. That was the most recent one they released. It's like 8 episodes for this damn thing, and it's live action. Have watched it? No. Am I planning to watch it for maybe like first review? Probably yes. Oh, in case you're curious though, Rohan Kishibe this is quite weird for him. In Diamonds Unbreakable, which is part 4, he is voiced by Mick Minaglia. For the OVAs, they swap voice actors with him. They replaced him with, get this, London McDonald. I'm not kidding about that. They replaced him with him. Well, there could be a reason for it. And you're probably thinking, why? Simple. The allegations against Mick Minaglia. That's probably the reason why they probably didn't bother doing anything with him. Yeah. Like, if I were Netflix and they want to dub this thing, I would probably have a separate dub where basically you have the same exact dub cast, except it's Rohan with the original dub actor. I would have done that. But no, we kept dub as it is. And wow, this is going for really long. I'm going to end it here. Again, next video, my final thoughts on Stone Ocean. Okay, next video. Bye.